Hello out there, Casual Fanatics. Jeremy here, and if I sound a little bit deeper and froggier than normal, it's because, well, I think I've got like the precursors of a cold here, or the first parts of a cold here, because my throat has been sore for about the last few days, and I have been nursing it quite a bit with hot tea with lemon and honey and taking like some Zicam stuff to help reduce the duration of it if it is a cold. And yeah, it still is kind of. I mean, I'm considerably more awake now than I would have been earlier in the day. Of course, if I'd have been doing this like not too long after I woke up, my voice would be even deeper still because, well, when I am tired, I of course, my voice drops down way low because I don't really feel like talking that much or expending much energy to talk. This is going to make my day job really fun though, because I make my living using my voice now, helping people out with tech support. So um, yeah, if you get someone who says, "Hi, my name is Jeremy," while calling for support for your iOS device, and he sounds like he's got a bit of a frog in his throat, that's probably me. So, um, as a result of this, and because I really haven't had much in the way of the ability to project the kind of energy that I would need to in order to shoot this video, there's not going to be Pokemon fan theories this week. As for what I am going to do for a major video this week, I don't know. I mean, even if I did one of my Fun 5e builds or something special along those lines, I would still need to have some kind of energy into my voice and be able to project a little bit more. And with my voice in its current state, I don't know how possible that would be. So this may end up being the only big video that I've got for this week because of you know Kermit decided to take up residence in my throat. So excuse me. Um, and also, I've kind of been a little bit down this week as well. Because, well, partially because of, I mean, the drop in subs. And I know most of it's YouTube clearing out inactives. But it still hurts because we got up to 107 and then we just ran smack into a wall and stopped. And I'm sorry, I did that right next to my ear, and my hurt my ear just then. I have a thing where I don't like concussive noises. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. I've been down a little bit because of that, but I've also been down a little bit because of something that I realized from last week's Fun 5e Bells video. For those of you who have joined since I did the first one of those, the reason why I came up with the concept of the 3d6 random is because, well, I wanted to do the 3d6 random as kind of a response to some of those um, some of those D&D elitists out there who might think that you're not hardcore because you don't know what it was like back in the day, man. You don't know what it was like when you had to roll 3d6 in order and keep it. You know, you don't know what it was like back then when it was hardcore, when real men played the game, which is a terrible phrase, by the way. And while I did get two viable characters out of it, 4 or 5e, I'll be honest with you, it is boring. I find it incredibly boring, that method of rolling dice. Because in my experience, there's so little variance. You know, you would think with having a higher chance of getting scores that are terrible, you'd think there'd be more variance and more room for play. There's I've done two of those so far, and it just bored the crap out of me. I mean, I had to, the last one, for those of you who did see it, I had to re-roll some stats to make them suck more. Just because I had to try and add some interestingness into it to make the character something more than just a flat stock what the fuck ever. And it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun at all. And I don't think I'll be doing the 3d6 randoms anymore. I may adjust that into a 4d6 random challenge. Similar rule, but using the 46 drop the lowest. Or I might try and mix it up with like dice pools. Or maybe at some point try like 20 point buy and just try and figure it out that way. I like the concept of rolling your stats first and then seeing what you can do with them. It's just having so little difference in the 3d6 bothered me. And to those out there who are the kind of old school, oh, this is the way it always was, this is hardcore. There's nothing hardcore about being bored out of your mind, and there's nothing hardcore out of getting something completely unplayable. Okay? Just cut that shit out. Of course, a lot of that has to do with my own personal sensibilities. I don't entirely hate old school methodology. I hate when it has no point, and I hate it being professed as being something awesome and greater when something newer comes along and fixes or replaces it. Dungeons and Dragons is a nearly 40-year-old game at this point. And while the original edition had 3d6 on order, there's also a lot of terrible stuff in there that has been fixed over the years. A lot of other stuff that is just terrible. Like having stat differences between female and male characters. That shit's been cut out in more recent releases. From about like 3rd edition on, that changed. May have been 3rd edition. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I'm a knowledge hound, and I do want to know that. And for these vlogs, I don't really do any research because, I mean, the fuck's the point? But, yeah, there's a lot of awful mechanics from way back then that we don't use anymore. To hit AC 0. Even people who understand it hated to hit AC 0. So that went, it's just roll, here's the defense you're targeting, roll to see if you beat that. That makes sense. So, yeah, I don't subscribe to the old school methodology that much. I mean, it's and admittedly, a lot of it also comes with me starting with 4E. You know, I started with the game that was more noob friendly, so to speak. But even then, I've played a little bit of 5E, and at this point, I've played a couple of sessions of Pathfinder. And actually, that does bring up an additional point because my first few sessions of 4E, my character got close to dying, but somehow I never really, back then, I never really felt that it was a bad thing. I never really got angry about it. Even when going through encounters, my character died literally at the last minute. It it didn't make me angry. It didn't make me upset. But a little bit later on, I had participated in one of the D&D Next playtests, and I was it was just me with two characters, a cleric and a monk, and one GM because apparently no one else bothered to show up that day. And it ended in a TPK for my characters. And my characters weren't really built that badly. You know, I had done my research and my work and figured out how to create, you know, good clerics and monks with the information that was being given from the next. It just, you know, they both of them went down in like 2 hits each, and I got angry because I never really felt like I'd had a chance. You know, and again, this is something that's going to rub up against the old school D&D players. Well, first level characters are supposed to suck. You're supposed to be fragile as shit. Life's tough. You're just one step up from an NPC. What did you expect was going to happen, douchebag? After that experience, I didn't entertain 5e. Thoughts of trying to play 5e for like almost 2 years until it actively came out as the official 5th edition system. Because by then, it was a fully fleshed out system. They had worked out the bugs from the playtest, and characters had a little more survivability to them. Well, this past weekend, I played in a couple of sessions of Pathfinder, and my first one was again another one of those situations where I didn't feel like my character really got to do anything. I mean, at that point, I was playing a bard, only because I like doing things differently, I wanted to play a melee focused bard. And full disclosure, admittedly, I didn't get the build quite right because I had of course, my highest stat was charisma. My next two were strength and dexterity because I was having her wield a longsword, and longswords are not finessable weapons. And I had mostly built her also as a melee capable diplomat. So mostly diplomacy focused with some martial capability because her backstory is that she's the daughter of an elven noble and a human diplomat that fell in love, got married, allied their clans, and so on. So yeah, she only had a total of 9 hit points, and the only reason why she had 9 hit points is because in Pathfinder you get bonuses for favorite classes. Uh, when depending, those bonuses depend, I believe, on race. Um, in because in my character's case, Arenia's case, she's a half elf. So the bonus that she gets is either one additional point that she can spend to rank up a skill, or one additional HP. I gave her the HP because I wanted that one extra little point. So bards have a hit die of 8, and at first level you automatically get max. So she had 9 HP. Still enough to get beat down in one hit. Even with an AC of 16, which isn't the worst AC I've seen for a Pathfinder first level character. It's about average, really. And that was including light armor and a buckler. And I got pissed. I admit it, I got really, really pissed. Because, I mean, yeah, she didn't get to do hardly anything. And a, a lot of the people in the IRC chat for that were trying to kind of talk me off of the ledge, for lack of a better phrase there. And I was so mad that I was beyond consolation at that point. When I get to that level of mad, there's really only two things. There's really only one thing that you can do. Let me cool down first before you try talking to me about the situation. If for some reason I'm ever mad at you or something else, just leave me alone so I can cool down, so that I have time to get where I can discuss things rationally. Only in this case, I wasn't mad at the GM. I mean, he was playing it, he was playing the mechanics as they were supposed to be played. But, I was more at the mechanics of Pathfinder itself, about how squishy it is and how unversatile some of the classes are. I like having versatility in classes. I like having classes that aren't just pigeonholed into being one thing. And yes, while bards, you normally think, at least most of the time, bards are mostly relegated to being support roles. You know, staying back, casting spells, and aiding their allies. I wanted more of a martial focus to mine, and with the initial build that I'd had, that proved to not be the case. And that's another one of those old school mentalities that just pisses me off. That you're supposed to be expect to die. It's not that I don't want my characters to ever die, although that is partially true. It's more that if my character is going to die, their death has to mean something. I mean, we're not talking about the real world here, where things are pointless and bleak sometimes. And we're certainly not talking about role playing in like the Warhammer 40k, where everything is darkness and bleak, and eternal warfare all the time. I can never play in that universe. No, we're talking about a land that is almost literally suffused with magic and life. A world where if you can roll well enough, and if you can convince the DM that it's cool, the impossible can become possible. And do you really gain something by losing a character before level 1 or at level 1? the only thing that you gain is the knowledge that the mechanics that you're using hate that particular build of the character, which, for speaking for role-playing purposes, is completely goddamn pointless. Because that character has learned nothing. That character does not exist anymore. That character cannot help you in any way, shape, or form. The only benefit you get is meta-wise. In-game, you have gained nothing. And that's not a good thing when you're playing a tabletop role-playing game, to not be able to learn anything in-game with your character. Characters don't grow by dying. Dying is the exact opposite of growth. But anyway, despite that, I did end up rebuilding the character, and I did rebuild her a little more durable. I traded out the strength for constitution. I had actually had like 17 base charisma. I dropped that down by 1 point to 16, and that allowed me to bump my previously 7 wisdom up to an 8, so I had a little less penalty to things like perception and sense motive. And so I did ultimately get to play as a second version of Arenia, and that one still built to be the kind of character that I want. Still built to be a melee capable bard. In fact, I actually had some plans to make her even more so by taking some levels in Warlord later on. Um, but yeah, she actually had the only reason why, and I should be clear, my first version of Verenia did not actually die. That was because there was someone in the party that was able to grant a status called Die Hard, which means basically when you die, you don't. When you go down, when you're hit to 0, you don't immediately go down. You still have some kind of coherence where you can still stick people if you need to. And I kind of felt like I didn't deserve that in the first session. The second session, though, for the most part, Arenia was because of rolls not even able to be hit. But toward the end of it, she did actually get knocked down to -1 hit points, which once you get to -1 hit points, you're starting to get into the point where you're starting to die. But because of Die Hard, she wasn't. She was still standing. So she actually got to have an awesome moment where she just took the claw, leaned in with her rapier, and took the claw of a bear right across her gut, but leaned in with her rapier and took the bear with her. She did survive, again, because of that Die Hard. But she kept one of the bear claws as kind of a symbol of the things that she'd have to endure on her path as a diplomat. And that did redeem the Pathfinder mechanics for me a little bit. I'm not as low on it now as I was. Gotta make some tea before I leave for work, I think. even so, there's a lot about Pathfinder that still strikes as old school because, well, for those of you who don't know, Pathfinder basically came out round about the same time that 4E did because when 4E came out, it was so radically different from 3.5 that people were like, whoa, wait, the fuck is this? This is based on an MMO. We don't want this shit. So Pathfinder kind of branched off at that point. And it still has some of the mindsets of 3.5, still has some of those old school eccentricities about them. And it's also a very complex rule system. Because again, it's derived from 3.5, and 3.5 was a pretty complex system in its own right. It's not the complexity of Pathfinder that gets to me. It's the fact that some of those elements have been held over from way, 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 way back. And, you know, I don't subscribe to the gospel of old school. I don't. I am the old school mechanics equivalent of an atheist, okay? I don't believe in them. I believe that over nearly 40 years, the mechanics have evolved and changed, and for good reason. Heck, I believe it was 2nd edition where they started saying, you know, that whole 3d6 in order thing, yeah, we realized that wasn't that great of a method, so here are other things you can use. You have 46 drop to low, you have dice pools, you have point buy systems, and later on you have standard arrays that you can use. Those I find, so even the game developers themselves over time realized we did some dumb shit back then, and they worked out the kinks. That's why I don't like some of the newer games that have gone back to the old Nintendo hard roots, because it feels like steps back from how games are moving forward. I don't want games super, super easy. That is not what I want. What I want is for there to not be games that are deliberately designed to be stuck with the old broken shit. The stuff that we had gotten rid of over the years, the stuff that we found unfair back then that are somehow creeping back into things now. I don't want to be coddled. I don't like the tough love mentality. I don't like the idea of my fictional worlds being just as cruel and unforgiving as the one that I live in. I have enough trouble feeling redundant and useless in my own head. I don't need that when I'm playing a tabletop RPG. I don't need that when I'm playing a video game. I play those so that I can have hope and excitement about what I'm doing, and not to basically feel like I'm living the exact same kind of life that I already live in my real life. You know, video games and tabletop games, they are meant to be an escapist medium. They're meant to let you do things that you cannot do in real life. Anyone who tells you anything different is bullshitting you. You know, even the realistic military shooters are still hyper idealized depictions of war and combat. Probably to an inordinate and arguably offensive degree, but let's not go in there. Yeah. The thing is, yes, I get that life is hard. That's why we create things that are meant to inspire us. That's why we create worlds where life isn't so hard, because we want to have hope that our real life can become at least in bits and pieces like that one. You know, maybe we'll never have magic. Maybe we'll never have elves and dwarves and gnomes and dragons and unicorns. Maybe we'll never have some of the more fantastical elements of fantasy or sci-fi or whatever else. But we'll still have the ability to evolve. We'll still have the ability to change. We'll still have the ability to improve. And we'll still have the ability to look at things at the end of the day and say, there's a chance things can get better. And maybe, aside from saying that there's a chance things will get better, maybe we might also say, and I want to help it happen. Again, old school is not terrible, at least not entirely. There are bits and pieces from those old days that still hold true. And we've held on to them, both in tabletop RPGs and in video games and other forms of media. The old things that have worked, we keep around, we pay homage to, and we build upon them. The things that don't work, we fix them. That's how it's supposed to work. You don't take the broken and uphold it as an idealistic standard to aspire to. You have to be a little mindful and self-cognizant. You have to realize that that stuff didn't work for a reason. And that stuff got fixed for a reason. And most importantly, you really have to realize that maybe it's time to let those things go. Until next time, Casual Fanatics, keep it casual, y'all.